Okay, here we go. Do not try this at home unless you have a severe manic disposition that leads you to excessively train and practice your motor skills in the safest possible way for weeks. But if you'd like to get started, you could do so in super slow motion, as in as slow as possible. So you need to first watch several hours of how martial artists talk about their martial art, and then start thinking about how it might be to run a chopstick through your finger in preparation for practicing something like this very slowly. So don't shortcut. Great. Sticks can be dangerous. Because if you hit somebody, it hurts. Especially if you consider the force that is generated when you're spinning a stick this length around your body. Because the stick is about 6 feet long, maybe 5 feet. I'm not quite sure. I'm about 6 feet tall, so it goes to about here with me. If I have that in my hand, just on one end, with my arm being about 3 feet, that's where the fun 6 feet rule comes from, by the way. 6 feet apart means handshake, like this, over distance, high five, bam. You can still make physical contact. You don't have to be a rude freaking asshole and go like this, because that's a few steps away from this. You just need to be like this, kind of high five, and then bam, perfectly 6 feet. And like that, you could measure out very accurately, very quickly, 6 feet of distance on a waiting line. But rather than doing it that way, markings are being created on the floor for people to know I have to stand here, and then I have to stand here, and then I have to stand here. And that's making things so idiot-proof, a Japanese monkey would be able to figure it out eventually. It's quite polite, but I mean, then we're really not practicing anything anymore whatsoever. I mean, automatons, meat sack automatons. Stand here, go here, consume. What I find interesting about the 6 foot rule in general is that there is a very similar rule like this related to something else. I give you a modern vehicle. When you learn how to drive, children, you have this to look forward to, I hope. When a grown adult learns how to drive, they learn about tailgating. You should not tailgate. That's what they tell you in the lesson of getting a driver's license. Then you get your driver's license after you pass your examination and everything. Then you start driving around and you're not tailgating. but everybody else is. That's so close-minded. That's such a generalization. Kids, let's play a game. Next time you're driving around in a car with your parents, and I hope that soon, because it's safe from the house into the car, from the car back into the house, you can have a look around. Kids, when you're driving around with your parents, take a look at the car in front of the car where your parents are in, and then, as it's driving along, pick one thing that's on the side of the road, like a street sign or a lamppost or a fire hydrant or anything you want, anything that's not moving. And when that passes the car that's in front of you, you start counting in your head. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. And if that object passes the front of your parents' car before you can say 3 Mississippi in your head, then you can say, Mom, you're tailgating. Because at that point in time, they're tailgating. It's that simple. Because with the counting, you're actually measuring out the distance between the two cars. That's why it's such a useful trick. Because if you're driving super, super, super fast, then the object is going to travel super, super, super fast between the car in the front of you and your parents' car. If they're traveling so slow, you can see an old lady walking next to you with a dog as you're driving in your car, then it will take forever for that object to make the difference. That's why cars are allowed to be closer to each other in the city than they are on the highway. That all has to do with how likely it is to bump into each other. And how likely it is to bump into each other should be really important when it comes to driving around. It's very much a New York thing, actually, with the tailgating. But it's also in the rest of the country. You can't travel 80, 90 miles an hour and be 6 feet apart from each other on the highway. Unless everybody that does that is a superhero with reflexes that are literally, they have to be faster than mine, because I don't do that, because it's not, you can't predict it. The person does a full emergency stop in front of you, you're in half his car. There is no question around that. Your eyes will not process the information quick enough to send it to your brain to then tell your foot to please hit the freaking brake pedal in the right way, to then take a pause, to then swerve around it, to be able to run out your brake. That's not gonna happen, not on 6 feet. So, be mindful of your tailgating before you try to implement this as human beings trying to go into a supermarket. I think either those tapings on the floor are removed immediately, or everybody has to attach a 20-foot somehow like foam pole or something like that to their freaking cars so they know when they're tailgating the other person. One or the other. I don't think applying the one for human beings just to make sure for germ makes sense. If you don't apply that to physical cars, just to make sure nobody crashes into each other. Just a thought. What I did with the stick can also be done with the rope.